First, let me just say, so thank you again, Christy. Thank you, Sherm. And let me just say thank you for walking all the way over here. I mean, holy cow. I posted on Twitter, come join me for the 3 o'clock session. Not only will you learn some skills, but you'll also get in 10,000 steps walking all the way over here. So, not a bad gig at all. Well, I'm delighted to be here today and talking about really what it means to be a strategic thinker. And what's most important here is understand that strategic thinking cannot be limited to the C-suite. The world is littered with CEOs who got dumped because of the fact that they weren't able to come back and translate great ideas into the working person, into the actual person who's doing the job. And that's where I think that we are very uniquely qualified in a bunch of different ways. But certainly when it comes to being able to tap into what our employees think, that's us. I haven't met many CEOs who can do that. And that's where we can really bring that value to the organization, is just the fact that we can help translate goals into that we can translate these strategic goals into day-to-day actions. Not only that, but we can also really make more of a strategic contribution, if you will, than I think a lot of different departments, because they're so focused on their day-to-day, to where our job is looking across the board at everybody. Now, let's define what I mean by strategic HR leadership. I think this is important first to make sure that we're all on the same page. First off, it really is about understanding the operations of your business. Not only that, but also understanding how your business succeeds. Because the flip side of that is if how your business is failing. Because it's in that that's most important. Yes, understanding the day-to-day operations, but how do you succeed? Where do you make that money? And once you know that, then we can translate that into about looking at the business, about departments, and about people to really look at their effectiveness. And that's what's most important, because we want to translate that success, translate that into the systems and the people that are actually making it that way. Not only that, but it's also about looking at what our future workforce needs are, right? Who here isn't thinking about, stressing about the fact of what we're going to need in the future? We also need to understand and exploit technology and analytics to improve. Now, we're going to talk about each one of these, by the way, in more detail. Also, all my slides are posted on the app. So you can download all of this. Like I said, you can download all of this as well. It's also about understanding our competitive landscape. So when we talk about how your company succeeds, strategic HR leadership is really about understanding where we are in our competitive landscape. And also where, the economic factors that really come in and sort of dictate our success. And also our social environment. I'm sorry, anybody buy steel? Anybody buying anything outside the United States? Nobody? 2 people? All right, there we go. All right, just checking to make sure everybody's awake. Everybody's awake. All right. So what's going on in the world? What's going on economically in the world really matters, and that matters to our success. Also, it's just the whole green. The world's really thinking about green. So understanding our social impact and our social, where we are socially as well is very important. Meanwhile, finally, it's really just thinking about this changing landscape, right, of the labor pool. Holy cow, is this just worlds away from where we were even a couple years ago. Now, three defining strategic HR drivers as I think about it. First is the fact of really what core business competencies do you need to know in order to come back and be this credible strategic partner to your C-suite. What do you need to know? Because understand that if you don't understand where the business makes money, where it loses money, why would a C-suite want you in the room? That's what we have to think about, is what are those core business competencies well beyond HR? That's sort of your basis. Where do you go about the understanding the business itself? What monetary value does HR bring to the organization? We need to think about that. We need to know that. And finally, forgive me, it's also what value do we generate for the customer? Because ultimately, that's where we see the success of our business, is because of the fact that we have customers in buying our product, buying product more so than our competitors. So we need to be involved in that mix, and we really need to understand that mix. So what we're going to look at today, we're going to look at traits of strategic thinkers. I'm going to give you some short and long-term strategies, and then I'll break it down to what strategy looks like in your day-to-day. We'll go through each one of these. First is forward thinking. So you look at that and you go, hey, I'm thinking about forward thinking. I'm thinking about next week. I'm thinking about the end of the year. I'm thinking about that. I got it. But the key is we got to look even beyond that. And remember, we have to think about it from the company standpoint. Yes, that's called your job to be thinking about what's next or what's due at the end of the year. But we have to also step out of it and step above and look at that 30,000-foot view of what needs to change or what may need to change. So it's not just sort of embracing this forward thinking, but also even trying to push it along to see where it is that we can contribute. Now, who's heard the automation, right? Automation, automation, automation. We hear a lot about that. Anybody involved in transportation? Anybody involved in transportation? Let me tell you, self-driving cars. That is 100% going to revolutionize your business. What about, and also by the time we come in, if we can set them up as self-driving and have them renewable energy through sun, they never have to stop. They don't have to stop to get refueled or even recharge an electric battery because they can do that themselves. Let me give you a good example of somebody who didn't really think about this whole forward thinking notion. Anybody have a Blockbuster card? Anybody have a Blockbuster card? Yep, exactly. How's that working for them now? Nobody came back and said and looked at, was forward thinking enough to think maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe there is some change that we should do. And the challenge with that is now they are no more. Well, there's one, right? Bend, Oregon, I understand. There's one. They haven't gotten word. I understand the one in Alaska shut down. That's what I heard. So Bend has still not gotten word that, oh, by the way, the company's shuttered. Did anybody have a BlackBerry? Anybody have a BlackBerry? Crackberry? Come on. Yeah. Oh, God, I still miss my BlackBerry. They never, let me tell you, Apple never should have had the success that they're having. But somebody sat in a meeting and said, no, you know what? Nobody's going to want to look at the internet on their phone. And they never were able to make that change. By the time they finally got on board and looked to make changes to the BlackBerry, it was too late. It was absolutely too late. And yet they were first on the scene. They were first on the scene. So that forward thinking momentum, they just never did it. Now let's compare that to somebody who did it well. Barnes & Noble. So they thought that, again, when the Kindle came out, the thought was, oh my goodness, this is the death of bookstores. It'd be the absolute death of bookstores. So and by the way, it was Borders. Anybody remember Borders? Yep, exactly. They did not. It was the death of Borders. The flip side of that, though, Barnes & Noble. They leaned into it. What'd they create? The Nook, exactly. I wish I had prizes I would give everybody. Not only just for coming over here. I feel like we need a cocktail or something. Hey, I'm from New Orleans. We take our cocktail hour seriously. So they leaned into it. They leaned into where the world was going and created their own. Not only that, but they also came back and started competing against Starbucks, taking on the big boys here, to create spaces where you would want to come back and actually work. That's who they're competing with in that environment. Not only that, but then they paid Starbucks to come in. Please come into our facility and serve coffee to be an environment where we could have customers come in and sit. That's where we think about that forward thinking. Always thinking it. And again, even Not being in this reactionary mode, but being in this driver's seat of where we need to go to. So when I think about the rise of automation, McKinsey just came out with a new with a pretty comprehensive survey on this. 50% of current work activities, they are technically automatable by existing technology. 6 of 10 current occupations have 30% or more that is technically automatable. Now, don't worry, less than 5% of full-time jobs are actually 100% automatable. But what we're seeing, though, is that a big chunk of your job could be automated. So the key is let's lean into that. Let's see what's going on there and see how we can embrace that it may come in and give us a competitive advantage. They're estimating 400 to 800 million FTEs are going to be displaced by adoption of automation. Now, interestingly, they're talking about a third of U.S. workers that are going to need to shift occupations and learn new skills. They are not suggesting that the workforce, that the numbers, that there's going to be huge unemployment by automation, which I thought was interesting. What they're saying is that people are going to need to be reskilled to learn new jobs, because automation is going to take that stuff that is easily, like the back office data processing, routine jobs. That's what they're talking about, that are targets for automation. That's what your company's involved in. You need to be thinking about that. Now, somebody asked me, they said, are you, being in HR, are you worried about automation coming in and getting rid of your job? And I'm like, well, if there's 2 people there, there's going to be problems. So, no, not really. Now, maybe my job may change, but if there's people there, there's going to be problems. And I laughed with him and kind of went on further, and I said, and actually, to be quite honest, some of the people I know, if they're in the company alone, they're still getting into problems, and I need to be there. So again, but what I would say, your job isn't going to go away, but what I would say is you're thinking about automation. This is what's going to keep you current. If you are able to embrace automation, think about how that could potentially play into your environment, that's what's going to keep you current. So your job is going to morph, but it's really about thinking about how can we embrace automation and use that to our advantage to help our company do better than our competitors. And also assist our customers in a more timely fashion, more accurate, whatever it is that our customers care about. That's how we want to lean into and embrace automation. Now, strategic thinking tools. Anybody use GAP? Anybody use a GAP? Anybody use GAP? All right, few hands out there. I'm hoping to see more next year. So there are tools out there, GAP. How about SWOT? Anybody use a SWOT? Oh, all right. Wow, we're loving the little SWOT here, aren't we? How about a fishbone? Oh, all right. I like that. All right. These are tools that can help us think about ourselves, think about our skill set, think about our department skill sets, and also think about our company and ask the questions about how are we doing strategically from the company's perspective at staying current. Not only staying current, but actually trying to embrace and sort of push that forward thinking into the future. That's how these strategic tools can come in and help you think outside the box versus just continually doing what it is that you're doing. Because as we know, if you just do what you do, at some point you're going to get run over, because it's not going to be good enough anymore for what our customers demand. Now, each one of these sections, I'm going to give out a little homework. Your homework for forward thinking is I would like you to look at your company's 5- and 10-year strategic plans. Conduct a SWOT, GAP, conduct a fishbone analysis. Think about what you need to do. What forward thinking must you do now in order to alleviate these future deficiencies that you're going to have? What change must you do now in order to reskill your existing workers to meet your future needs? What is it that you're going to need? So your homework here is, again, to look at that 5-10-year strategic plan. Now, just so you know, I've seen a bunch actually of people who took my classes yesterday on project management skills. I have, if you're interested, I can send you these SWOT, gap, and fishbone analysis, how to do it, as well as forms. So feel free to just shoot me an email or leave me your card. Next, seeks input. Folks who are strategic thinkers, they want to know what's going on in the department, what's going on in your organization, what's going on in your industry. You seek out information on what's going on your larger business, on the larger business environment. Now understand, please, this is not gossip. That is not information. Gossip is one of the biggest things that can take a company down. As somebody who goes in and helps companies, if companies are in trouble or in crisis, chances are there's a lot of gossip going around, because that actually brings companies to its knees. What I'm talking about is really about what information, what industry information do you need to know about that's going to keep you current on where your business needs to go in the future to meet your customers' needs? Who here has asked your CEO what they're reading? No hands. Hold on. Oh, two way in the back. Good for you. I see you back there all the way. This is a good question to understand. What is your CEO reading? What's your head of sales reading that keeps them current to understand where we go after clients, how we can adapt what it is that we're making because of the fact that you read something in a trade magazine that gave you an idea on where to spark. And by the way, it doesn't need to come from your head of sales. Why couldn't it come from the head of HR? Why couldn't that be there? And most people don't care. That C-level suite, they expect input and expect ideas from anywhere that they will come, and they will embrace that, and that shows your strategic chops. If you're coming in and bringing in ideas based on the information that you're seeing. What about, as we think about this, what sources, your homework then is what sources is going to help you determine what's going on in your industry? What about for your company? What do you think that your competitors are reading? What do you think that your competitors are reading? And finally, what do you think your customers are reading? Where are your customers? Where are they looking for your services? Where should they be looking? Where can you come in as we think about this? Where can you contribute articles and ideas to attract more customers to your organization and to what product that you're selling? That's how HR can really come in and add value because of the fact that we understand people, so we understand more than anybody customers. We understand our competitors. Get in that mix. Long-term focus. So it is about investing today in order to be ready for the future. I'll tell you, is 2030 that far off? I mean, I'm sorry, weren't we just talking about 2020? It's here now. Like it's here. This is 2019. We're going to go to sleep when we get back and wake up and it's 2020. Like that's how quickly the world is moving anymore. And I think it's important. Sometimes we think about decisions. We got to make these decisions now. Totally agree, but understand that decisions that we don't make today could potentially come in and affect our future opportunities. So if we don't, not making choices, not making decisions, not thinking about the future, that is a choice. You've made your decision. So as you think about where we should be going, these are things that we need to look at now. And the interesting thing is we got to strike this balance. We got to really strike this balance between creativity and realism, right? Anybody see Jennifer McClure's session? Yeah, one of the things that I thought was really interesting that she said was that a lot of breakthrough ideas, so Uber, Invisalign, she talked about maybe it was Airbnb, I think. They were not by people in the business. They were by people who needed those services and came through with these breakthrough ideas. I thought that was a really brilliant thing. That's just really interesting data, because what it does is we have a tendency when you're so insular, when we're so focused on internally, it's hard to come back and let your creative freak flag fly. And we got to do that because that's what's going to come in and get us this breakthrough thinking, or thinking that's not in the norm of just small incremental improvements, and is really going to set us up for future success. Now, I will say, when we think about long-term thinking, we're thinking about creativity, realism. I will say that that is not giving us the opportunity to be the naysayers. We can't be the no police. We can't be the no police. And I know, certainly it used to be that way, that we were the ones who came in and said no. And we say no a lot. It can't be that. We want to be the people of yes. You want to fire somebody? You've given them no warnings. They're 10, 20 weeks pregnant, and, sure, yeah. The key is how much money do you want to give them? How much money? I can walk her out today because you've not done your job. I could do that today. But understand, we need to walk her out with a check. See the difference, though? I know we're kind of laughing and we're kind of giggling, and I'm sure I've offended several people already. Sadly, it's not the first time in my sessions, but as I speak more from I try to think of things from a real responsibility. And the thing is, look, if this person's not doing the job, you don't want them in your organization. That said, but to be quite honest, I wouldn't want that manager in my organization either. So he or she would be next on my hit list of people to go after. But what I want to hear from you, what I want to hear from HR, is we can do anything we want. It's just a matter of how much we want to write a check for. That's a different mindset. That's coming from a place of yes, of solving the organization's problems. Now, good thing is you won't be around long enough. If we do lots of that, your company won't be around. So the key is education, really looking in that long-term focus, getting our managers better, going after that manager and getting rid of them. But it's these things that we have to keep that long-term focus in mind, and we got to be creative, but at the same time have a realistic expectation. And I want to hear from HR. I want people to embrace and be happy about the fact that they're seeing you coming in. I've had too many times where people go, oh God, it's HR. Let me not look. I'm going to look over here. I'm going to look over here. I'm going to look over here. Yeah, because I'm just not going to make eye contact with Val just in case there's a problem. It's not what we want. We got to be, oh my God, Val, so excited to see you. I'm so glad you're coming to this meeting because you always bring great ideas to the table. That's the person that we want to bring. That's the person we want in our offices every day. Now, two things that are very critical in this. If you're a micromanager, that's tactical thinking. It's got to go. Got to be in that strategic leadership mode, which is way more about long-term success of your employees. And guess what? It also is going to allow you time to think strategically. We need time to be a strategic thinker. It actually takes more time than just tactical, because tactical is doing. Strategic thinking needs to be, it's a lot of brain power. So we can't do that in 15-minute increments. We need we need solid blocks of time so we can think about long-term thinking, forward thinking. So if you are in a position, if this sounds like you on the left, if you are a taskmaster, if you are somebody who comes in and solves problems versus coaches your employees, if they don't have the opportunity to fail because you've really empowered them, you got to start there. Start there to let that go. And is it scary? You betcha. But that's what leaders do. That's what CEOs do every day. They got X amount of employees who are coming in and running and doing the work. You are handing over that responsibility. So focus on that next. Focus on that first. Now, so let's think about the next month in your work life. What key events require some critical decision making around that? Think about that. Now, think about flash forward a year from now. Did your decision hold up? Were key decisions overlooked? Think about where you are every year. Now, flash forward 5 years. Were there decisions you should have made that should have been made today that are now affecting what your company is able to do in the future. What decisions need to be made now, and how can you get the attention of your C-suite? So if you're not at that strategic thinking, that's why we need to get to that level, so you've got that seat at the table, so that your leaders will listen now, so you're set up for the future. That's really where we want to look. Now, willing to take risks. Very, very, I know that's tough. Willing to take risks is very, very difficult. However, do we come in? Are you the person who stimulates ideas in your organization? Or do we brainstorm? How many people have been in a brainstorming session? Yeah, we like brainstorming. Love brainstorming. How many times have you seen whoever's leading brainstorming go, all right, we want ideas, let's whip some ideas out. Somebody whips out an idea, then they go, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. How many great ideas are you going to whip forward in that environment? Maybe I'll try it one more time. But the moment people start judging my ideas, I'm out. You're not going to get my best ideas because you're going to come back and judge them. And by the way, if we're sort of thinking about this risk-taking, it may be that Airbnb of your organization. It may be that idea that just completely revolutionizes your business. So be that person who has brainstorming sessions and then get in there and support those new ideas. Protect those idea generators. We want those people to be heard. We want people bringing those ideas forward. Because if we've got a great IP contract in place, they're ours. It's fantastic. So if we have that, so we want those ideas being brought forward. We want mistakes in there. What's that name of that book? Fail Fast to Fail Forward. There's a lot to be said about that. Because mistakes mean we learn. We learn how not to do things again. Delegate, empower your staff. Make sure everybody delegates and empowers. Broaden your knowledge base. It's in that knowledge base that you can come back and actually think about new ideas. Because if the only thing we look at is that if we do the same day in and day out, chances are you get into a routine. And what you do is you stop thinking. You stop dreaming. You stop thinking about new ideas because of the fact that the day-to-day tactics have sort of put you in a routine. Push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Learn, speak up at meetings, do things. What is going to push you outside your comfort zone? Sign up for that. Sign up for that when you get back. We talk about this all the time. Diverse employees, ideas, teams. This really does help versus the fact of you getting very homogeneous thinking. And recognize and reward risk-taking. That's the only way you're going to get more of it. If we come in and say, wow, boy, that was a really awful idea. Here's money. Do that again. Do that again. Do it again and again until we come back and we win at this. Think about, Thomas Edison. It's certainly what comes to my mind first. 10,000 tries to figure out how to take electricity and turn it into a commercial light bulb. I would have given up. I'm sorry, there's no way. I do not have that level of commitment. I am sure that many people along the way told him that it was impossible. But he did not give up, and instead, look at where we are today. Be that person who comes in and recognizes reward and risk-taking. Now, if you've got anybody, well, don't raise your hands, but, and I'm sure not in your current environment, particularly if your boss is sitting right next to you. But if there's a lot of bosses out there who are risk-averse. Here are some specifics to handle them. Understand what her objections and motivations are. What does she care about or he care about? What do they care about? Because you need to understand what their motivation is, what their objections are. Why? So I can figure out how to go around them and sell my pitch in a way that gets around that. Decision-making and communication style, very critical to come in when you're dealing with a risk-averse boss. Align your ideas with corporate objectives. A lot of bosses, when we think about motivation, they want to come in and impress their boss, right? Let them impress their boss. Tie it to corporate objectives, and that will come in and help you sell it to them because they look and they're the superstar. He or she is the superstar. Sell risk avoidance. It's always good if you know, again, about how much, if something's going to cost, if it triggers. I always also build a coalition of supporters. I rarely go in when they're big meetings. I helped to found the women's cable channel, the Oxygen channel. My CEO and I, we didn't get along great. It's okay. It wasn't my best. She wasn't my best supporter. She was way more left brain, like woo, left brain. I'm bringing in these gorgeous spreadsheets and she's about to throw up. Like we were very much opposites. So, but by the way, and that was great for the COO. She and I got a lot better. But I bring in supporters in there who were more like her that she listened to. And I met with them before. So it wasn't just me in there going, wow, I think this is a great idea. Look at this Excel spreadsheet that supports it. It was the people that she trusted, people that she listened to more so, who were also saying, yeah, I think Val's really got a great idea. I'm already walking in with a risk-averse boss, and I'm already moving her to the needle, him or her to the needle of the fact of agreeing, because I've got a coalition of supporters. Solve her problems. Her problems are your problems. If you want somebody to agree to that, to agree to what it is that you're proposing and trying these risky ideas or trying new ideas, figure out how it solves her problem. Listen to objections and then repackage that rascal. Solve her problems. We always say that it starts with listening. That's because I want to hear what her objections are. Then I'm going to come back and repackage my idea and show that it solves her problems. Make her look like a heroine. If you come in and can make your boss look like a heroine or a hero, that's going to help you get your ideas across. Now, we also know, of course, always talk about ROI, right? In this is the fact that part of the sell is looking at the return on investment. Because if it doesn't make financial sense, if it doesn't financially solve a problem, that's going to be a challenge. So that's a basis, but all of these ideas can come in and help you overcome this risk-averse boss. Now, anybody ever not spoke up in a meeting because they were afraid? Yeah, I get it. I understand. Challenge with that, you do a disservice to certainly your department. You do a disservice to your company. And absolutely you do a disservice to yourself. Remember, you've been hired. You are a subject matter expert in your day-to-day job. You may be the only person who does it. Maybe there's somebody else who does your exact same job. But he or she doesn't do it exactly like you do. So you are a subject matter expert. Be brave. Be willing to take those risks and share your ideas. Why? Because strategic leaders share their ideas. Strategic leaders share their ideas. And remember, I'm sure that when somebody brought up, I'll just come back, I hate to say it, but let's come back to, there's no way, if you can read lots of things on the whole BlackBerry thing, there was a lot of talk about adding internet, and they vetoed it. Somebody was brave and said, I think we need to do this. They didn't listen, and by the way, there's a lot of credits on who actually brought it up the first time. They left. They left the company. So the key is understand that it may be scary. I get it. Maybe a little scary, but what if your idea is the idea that revolutionizes your company, that takes your company to the next level? Embrace differences. That's a risk to embrace differences in the environment. And also to teach others to embrace differences. That's hard for people to do. We talk about it all the time. Oh, yeah. We want diversity. We want diverse teams. We want diverse thinking. We want all that. And then we get into brainstorming sessions. We go, no, we can't do that. That's not embracing differences. It's not embracing differences. It's not embracing risk-taking. That's a taught skill. Teach that in your organizations. If that's something that your organization, if you are a group that doesn't really, that is concerned or slow to react when it comes to embracing differences, start there. Start there so that you don't lose the best ideas. Your homework. How can you help your company take more risks? What can you do to help them take more risks? What can you do to start at your department level to take more risks? How can I take more risks? How can I let my junior level employee have that project and potentially let her fail? And then coach her through it in order to learn those lessons so that she learns it and next time she succeeds. I understand risk-taking is scary and it's concerning, but it's really the start of your strategic journey. Next, prioritizing their time. I tell you, time is our most precious commodity anymore, right? We never have enough of it. Strategic thinking requires time. Let me give you a couple tools that'll help you. These are tools that can come in. If you look at your goals, your top 5, 10 goals that are on your list, prioritize them by urgency, interest, importance, and impact to your company. Prioritize those 5 or 10 projects by their impact to the company, their importance, their urgency, and their interest for the company. That will tell you what you need to work on. That will tell you that, and where we come in, and these are the projects that you need to get done between now and the end of the year. You got to figure out how to focus and put those in even amongst the day-to-day. Now, as you think about those 5 to 10 projects, put them on this 4 box. This is based on the effort along the x-axis, impact on the y. That's impact to the company, and effort that it will take you. Think about where you are in your day-to-day. Think about where you were over this last week or this last month. Were you in this high effort, low effort, and yet it didn't have a big impact to the company? Or were you more in this high impact zone? We need projects. We need to cross off projects that are in this high impact zone. If we're not, then we have to figure out how to shutter or let go of those things, those thankless tasks. And I understand that this is difficult, particularly difficult when you're in the tactical day-to-day, but it's the only way that your senior leaders are going to look and think of you as a strategic contributor and somebody that they want in those meetings talking about the strategic direction of your company because of the fact that you're doing high-impact things. And guess what high impact means? That they see it. High impact means that they see it and feel it. Your C-suite needs to see it and feel it. If all you do is toil in an environment where they do not see it, it doesn't count. It doesn't count for strategy. So we have to think about how we can market those efforts. So I'll throw out to you, how can you find 1 hour a week, 1 hour a week in your schedule to do strategic thinking? How can you do that on a consistent basis every week? Think about when that time is. Think about why that time works for your schedule. Think about why that's going to work. Think about the fact that you're going to sit there and you're going to shut your phones off, you're going to close your email, hirers, I know, and you're going to focus on what it means to be strategic in your organization. Now what I'm going to throw out to you, how are you going to carve that into 4 hours? And by the time you get to that 4 hours, you're going to be pushing yourself to be 8 hours a week of strategic thinking. That's how we want to come in and think. And that's going to give you the time in order to come in and meet the expectations of your bosses, your C-suite, and your company in order to stay relevant. Nimble. And last thing I'm going to say on prioritizing your time. Are you busy or are you productive? Are you busy or are you productive? They're 2 very different things, aren't they? 2 very different things. And I totally get how challenging that can be. But it's the only way if we come in and give ourselves, prioritizing our time to give ourselves to think about and to do strategic work that's going to come back and impact our company and impact our careers. All right, we're also nimble. Look, change is imminent. Change is imminent. It's uncomfortable. It's always going to be here. Adapting isn't easy. We know it. We can't anticipate it. I mean, and what I would say is, look, we change all the time, right? Life changes every day. You don't even really have any choice. You just wake up and something's changed, right? And the key is it's not going away. It's not slowing down. And what I want to say is it's not somebody else's problem. That's the funny thing is we think, oh, we're not good with change. I don't know that I really buy that, because every day is change. I think what we have to do is we just have to bring change into our offices. We have to embrace it and think about where we need to change in order to satisfy our customers and to satisfy the changing wants and desires of our customers. And I think that's what we have to do is we have to pull that in faster. We have to pull that in, not just sitting there waiting for it to happen. I think that as HR leaders, again, back to how our job really encompasses and goes across the entire company. We're so uniquely qualified to be that person who leads change, to be that person who's embracing it and encouraging others to lean into it and to want to change, to think about how to do things differently. That's us. And the challenge is if we don't help our employees, there's a lot of negative stuff, right? A lot of negative stuff if we come in and allow folks to fear this change in the office. And what I would say is people sort of stop innovating if they're just so terrified. I think of many companies, Ford Motor Company doing layoffs. Now, they now sit, and 6 months later they did the reorganization. 6 months later they did the reorganization. How much innovation do you think got done in that time period? How much work got done in that 6-month time period? Because everybody was sitting around and fearing for their job. That fear is real. That fear is real. How can we come in and make it as tolerable as possible? So, and it starts with us. How do we thrive in the midst of change? How do we not come back and say, oh gosh, one more initiative. CEO's got one more idea. No. CEO's got one more idea, and you know what? This one's the one that's going to hit. This one I feel. How can you help your employees adapt to change? How can you get them to be excited about it and to be working with it? How can you lead that change? We're really good at this. We are so qualified to lead this change, to lead employees. Based on we listen, we care. There's so many positive attributes that HR brings to the table. We just got to be the person who's leading change, and the C-suite can see that. That's how you come in and lead projects that are across the organization, because you're the person who can bring it home. We want to lean into that. Next, lifelong learner. What are you doing to figure out this doggone technology and data analytics? What are you doing to embrace these two? These are the two hottest topics I keep hearing about. Is technology, automation, data analytics. The key is it's more the fact that you just need to be aware of it. And then go talk to your IT person. I'm not going to be the person who's coming in and figuring out how to roll out solar technology in our trucks of delivering things and how we can bring in automation. But I'll tell you what, I can certainly lead the people doing it. I can get them in a room. I can lead them in brainstorming sessions to talk about how can we get in on trial studies? Are there universities that are close to us? How can we come in and take advantage before our competitors do so that we can deliver better services to our customer? Those are the questions. That's the meetings that we can lead. That's where we can come in and add value, because we can get everybody in a room and lead them well to allow people to talk and express their ideas and figure out how to make this crazy dream a reality. That's what we bring to the table. Now, on the data analytics, who uses data analytics now? We want to think about this. This is certainly, and what I would say is, and I can send you this list of 4 pages of data analytics. The question is pick those things that matter, that will help for you. We know that it's turnover that matters, right? That's probably something that you track already. So look, you do have hopefully some data in there. And again, it's the turnover that matters. The person who's terrible, we're lucky when they quit. Organizational effectiveness. It's revenue by the number of FTEs. That's something you can compare to other companies. Certainly if they're public, because you can pull their data. If they're public, that means that their information's available online. So look at their revenue versus their number of FTEs. It's an interesting data point. We can also look at pulling out the operating expenses, pulling out comp and bennies, because that's how much it costs to run your company. Looking at comp basis on comp cost versus revenue, or comp cost versus operating expenses. So what I would say is pick a couple. If this is not something that you've done now, talk with your finance department. They're into this. They love all this analytical stuff. So bring them in, help them figure out, and talk to your C-suite about data that matters, about HR metrics that matter. Pick one or two if this is not something you do now. Don't pick 30, don't pick 10. It's too much to track, because you want to be able to pick something, try it out, see if it gives you good information. And if it doesn't, change. Adapt that change and move to something else that will. Sales revenue ratios. Guaranteed your sales staff tracks those. You got to be creative. And by the way, creative isn't big box thinking. Creative is really on those activities day to day. Six Sigma technology. Anybody Six Sigma? Anybody a green belt or above? Yep, we got a few people in here, so you know what I'm talking about. But guess what? You don't have to do that crazy statistics. I left that alone in college. Almost broke me. Here's an idea. Reduce the number of touch points in a process. I can figure that one out. I can walk a piece of paper through and see how many people have to touch it in order to get it approved. That is Six Sigma technology. That is being creative at how to solve problems. Reduce the travel distance between processes. A lot of money in that. A lot of money even in our own organizations on the shop floor. Just in the event of material moving around to do your job. You know what? That's something we can look at. I don't need to know how to turn a lathe just to figure out whether or not it's in the right process. Kill any unproductive HR processes. Get rid of HR processes that aren't adding value. If they're not adding value, what I would say is, what's your employees' biggest pain points? What isn't working in HR? What are processes that aren't helping? Think about how you can get creative and solve their problems. Think about how you can get creative and solve their problems. That's what they're going to remember. That's strategic thinking. That's being this creative problem solver who's coming in and making sure that HR is adding value to the organization, that's adding money in there. All right, let's get into some short and long-term strategies. First off, understand you are judged by your staff. Hate to say it, if you've got somebody weak in your department, and I'm not talking about the fact that they are new, we're all new at some point if we're learning something new. If you've got somebody who's weak in your department, that's as good as your department gets. That's what you're being judged by. So you are judged by your staff. Roll out financial training to your company. Think about people need to be able to read a P&L. You need to be able to read a P&L. You need to understand what information the balance sheet is giving you and what your cash flows are showing so that you can come in and figure out how your company succeeds so you can talk to departments about how they can get better. But everybody needs to understand that. And again, I haven't met a ton of, and this is a blanket generalization, forgive me any controllers in here, I haven't met a ton of controllers and CFOs who are great at training. Met a ton of HR people who are. That's how you can partner with finance to roll out financial training that matters. Bring in 1 to 2 metrics. This is how you can come in and start to think strategically and start to show your C-suite that you're thinking strategically, because you're trying to figure out metrics that matter and metrics that will help us run this company. Quicker hiring, better hiring across the company. We know how brutal that is. We know how brutal that is by making poor decisions or this taking forever. So figure out, if we're thinking about short-term ideas and where to start, figure this one out. Release poor performers quickly. Poor performers cost you. I understand. And you know what? Sometimes it is better to write that check. Sometimes it is better to write that check than to keep a poor performer in place who is costing you money. Review your onboarding program. One of the biggest things that I see, we do not take advantage of bringing that employee in and making sure that they are ready to hit the ground running. When we think about who's onboarding for, who says it's for the employee? Who says it's for the manager? All right, now I'm not seeing anybody. Are you asleep? All right, come on. I know you got to be brave. Remember, we just said take risks. It's all right. It's all right. So who thinks this is for the manager? Hint, hint, hint. Lift your arm up there. There we go. Good job. Good job. The key is that what we want with onboarding, we want that employee to get busy doing their job as quickly as possible. Yes, I want them to know their benefits. Yes, I want them to be excited. But that is all in support of hitting the ground running for them to do their job, what we hired them to do. I want them to start that as quickly as possible. So as I think about onboarding, and remember, we think that it's going to take 3 to 6 months for somebody to get fully up to speed. Why is onboarding one day? Onboarding should never be one day. Onboarding should be that process that's with them until we knock those training wheels off. And they're at 100% giving to the department. So think about that onboarding. Longer-term strategic ideas. Create a fast reaction HR team. You want to be in there so that people call you and say, I have this problem. And your response is, I am going to help you. And they believe you. And they know that you're going to be there to help them. Follow the money. Follow the money. What do I mean by that? I mean, where do you make money? What comes in the front door, or the back door, goes through your process. How do you sell it, and what does your customer use that for? You need to follow the money. The money is everything. So it's not, legal adds, HR adds its little spin to get this along. Legal does that. Follow the money. Follow what comes in, what your sourcing department is buying, how that goes through your process to add value, and then how you sell it to your customers. Follow the money. Development plans. You do not want to lose those superstars. If you do not have a development plan for your superstars, they're going to walk. Not only is it horrific, that we've got an open position, but filling superstars is like a nightmare. Development plans keep them around. Succession planning, very, very critical for those critical positions. Anybody in sales, anybody who's a rainmaker. I know their pains. I get it. But that's why I want to have a succession plan. So if they bail, what am I going to do? What do I need to do to that second tier down in sales? So if they roll, I will feel it, but it will not take the company down. That's strategic. Think about the great discussion you're going to have with your CEO on the fact that I am thinking about if we lose some critical staff members, I'm helping you figure out how we can keep this company running. That's a good conversation to have. Catalog employee skills. It's one of the things we did at Oxygen Media really well. We knew you were hired for a job, but we also knew what your passions were. We knew what your interests were. So that if we needed that, I didn't need to hire people outside. Because I had employees who were excited about the company. And we made it part of their development plan to use things that they liked anyway. It was an incredible success. And it cut down on the amount of consulting that we had to do. Because our own internal employees could do it to begin with. I talk about sustainable training programs. You want an environment where everybody's teaching each other. I mean, thank God people don't do that because, I'm brought in all the time for training things. The key, sorry, but that's not really sustainable though. Sorry. All right, everybody in the back's just waking up. They're like, what did she just say? Oh my God. I'm marking her. I feel my marks going lower and lower. So, look, it's not sustainable to bring me in. But and I understand that you can't, I'm not saying that you come in and do those training programs. Maybe you lead it to begin with, But then how do you get your managers being those ones that train all the time and think in terms of training? That's what we want to do. And that is sustainable when you create this environment where everybody's training, coaching, learning. That's why it's important, because that is actually sustainable. Bringing in outside it's expensive bringing people in from the outside. And that's a one-day event. We got to figure out how to bring that in for the long haul. Productivity and growth. We need to be thinking about that. That's why you need to be out there following end-to-end your product. What stops you? What stops you? What are your pain points? Maybe I can help you through training. Maybe I can have conversations about the fact of what is our maintenance manuals? How long do we maintenance this? Because that's back to a training issue. A lot of things we can come in and do. Think about those revenue impacting metrics that we can tie to rewards on your performance management system. Now, in your day-to-day, where are you now? Where are you in terms of understanding how your company makes and loses money? If you don't know, that's where to start. Because from there, then you're going to come back and think about, can I connect? You go, yeah, I understand that. So can you connect your people to your financial performance? Can you connect your people to that P&L, to that balance sheet, and that statement of cash flows, the big three? Are you keeping up with trends in your industry? Do you know what's going on in your industry? Do you know what's going on with your competitors and customers? Their problems are your problems. Your competitors' problems, your customers' problems, they're your problems. Are you thinking about this technology and AI? If you're not, if we're kind of looking at this and going, oh God, I hope somebody else is looking at that, it's a missed opportunity to be thought of as strategic. Do you know what your 2030 workforce needs are going to be? Do you know? Because that's where we're at. That's where we're at, is we're at 2030 strategic thinking. Again, recognize, do you have the staff in place? I've said this before, do you have the staff in place? Do what you have to do to get out of that transaction business. Even if you are a department of one, how can you use automation? How can you use your intranet? How can you use something to get out of this transaction-based? Learn your business. Start with the sales or customer-facing departments. It's where I always go to look at companies, because I want to know who's touching the customer. Not in an inappropriate HR way. Don't mean to say that, but who is in contact with the customer? What's our customer saying? Because that's where I'm going to start walking backwards. It's not enough just to be able to read your financials. It's about being able to interpret them. Partner with finance. They can help you look at those analytics. They can help you figure out analytics that matter for your company. And embrace technology, even as hard as that may be. Next steps, partner with those revenue-generating companies or departments. I know we talk about succession planning. We can't go everywhere. I always start with sales. I start with sales. I start with customers. Anybody who touches the customer, that's where I start on succession planning. I want to solve their challenges because they're the people who are going to come in and make a difference with our customers. And again, it's a start. Because I can't tackle everybody's problems all at once. But I do start with those people who are following the money, bringing in the money. Do a SWOT analysis. Do a gap analysis on where your department excels and where there's room for improvement. Thinking outside, taking it outside with SWOT or gap is going to come in and help you figure out how you can come in and service your customers, your internal customers, as well as your external customers. That's how you can figure that out. Demonstrate to the C-suite that you really understand the company's long-term goals, that you're thinking about that already. Again, I understand that's not a today issue unless you're ready for it. The key is that you've got to demonstrate that you're thinking about where your business is going because of what you're reading, because of what you're hearing. Goodness sakes, that's it. Holy cow. There's just a lot of ideas here. And what I would once again reiterate is that I think that we're just in a position that we can do this. I don't think there's anything on this list. Is there anything on this list that you think you can't do? No. That's what I heard up here. I heard a rounding. Are we prepared to do this? All right. A lot of ideas in here. Figure out where to start. Your first hour of strategic thinking is looking this rascal over and seeing what you can implement in the next 2 weeks. Thank you so much for joining me again.